Fannie and Freddie spread around the campaign contributions, too. Democratic Senator Christopher Dodd of Connecticut has been the biggest recipient of money from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for the past 20 years, more than $165,000.
Senator, do you think we're in the middle of an event that has a high likelihood of leading to an economic recession, or is this a short-term thing that we've just got to get past?
Well, I'm hoping it's short term. So I don't want to make any, I don't think this necessarily gets to that.
Peter, I guess razor blades are in order?
The worst is yet to come. The fundamentals are not sound. They're awful. If the fundamentals were sound, we wouldn't be having these problems.
Fannie and Freddie, Peter Schiff, what's going to happen to them?
Well, all this does, if it means they can buy more mortgages, then certainly lending standards might ease a bit for those mortgages that they can unload on Freddie and Fannie. But all it does is create a bigger problem for these companies, because it only means they insure more mortgages that are likely to go bad.
Will they survive?
I don't think so. I think Freddie and Fannie are going to go to zero. I think there's no hope for the shareholders.
Zero?
Well, I think they're going to go bankrupt. I think the big question is what happens to all the bonds they insure. Will the government step up and bail and guarantee?
But they have a duty to do that.
Well, we don't know. It's untested. It's not a full faith and credit guarantee. It's an we assume that they're going to, and I don't know, because obviously where's the government going to get the money to bail out all these failed mortgages? All they can do is create it. All they can do is print it, which means there's a lot more inflation.
That's not what's going to happen. Look, Fannie, Freddie been around for 70 years. They were doing fine.
So again, the points I really wanted to make to you here is in my examination, talking with people today, is that there is no reason for the kind of reaction we're getting. These fundamentals are sound. These institutions are sound. They have adequate capital. They have access to that capital. And this is a reason for people to have confidence in these GSEs, in Fannie and Freddie.
But if this is ideologically driven, as some have suggested, to merely eliminate these programs altogether, forget what they have looked like, then this could be a real problem. Remember, a great source of wealth creation in this country has been home ownership. And that has happened because Fannie and Freddie existed. Now, that doesn't mean they should exist as they have been over the years, given all the problems we faced. But talk about eliminating that kind of an entity, which has created so much wealth for so many Americans. I think we do a major step backwards.
Joining us, Peter, you think this was a blunder of colossal proportions.
It was a terrible idea. It's another example of the government cure being worse than the government disease. It was the government that created the housing bubble. It was both the actions of the Federal Reserve and Fannie and Freddie. And now that Fannie and Freddie have gone bankrupt, which is something that I actually have been predicting for years, the government should have taken the opportunity to simply allow them to fail and to tell all the holders around the world and the United States of $5.5 trillion of mortgages guaranteed by Freddie and Fannie that they're on their own.
We could not let that happen.
But the problem is, though, this doesn't do anything about the reason that Fannie and Freddie went bankrupt, because of the huge losses. The houses are not worth anywhere near what people borrowed to buy them. So there's hundreds of billions of dollars of losses, probably in excess of $1 trillion worth of losses that are still there. But all the government has done is said, instead of the people who bought the mortgages suffering the losses, every American taxpayer, every American citizen is going to suffer those losses instead. Because there's either going to have to be massive tax hikes to pay for these defaults, or more likely, tremendous printing of money. We're going to have massive inflation. And if people think the cost of food and energy is high now, wait till they see how much things cost in a few years after all these mortgages fail. Your point was right. The government is trying to maintain bubble home prices, but they can't do it. Home prices need to collapse. And the whole irony of this is theoretically Fannie and Freddie are there to make housing more affordable. But now their mission is to keep housing prices from falling. Well, that makes houses less affordable. The best way to solve this problem is to let housing prices collapse to the point where Americans can actually afford to buy them and where lenders will lend. Because right now, nobody would lend because nobody could pay back the loan.
Is there an irony here that it's the Bush administration that's had to step in and do this when it was the Bush administration 8 years ago that was saying, you know, we need to get government out of the markets, we need to get government out of trade, we need to have free trade. The problem is
government never got out of the markets. We have this problem because of government interference. We had the government, the Federal Reserve, setting interest rates instead of the free market, so they set them too low, and we had the housing bubble, and we had Freddie and Fannie with this implied government guarantee that let people buy these mortgages even though people couldn't pay the mortgage.